Hi, this is Cheryl Gallant, your Conservative Member of Parliament for the logical riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. Trudeau's radical left-wing Minister for China's Environment is back in Canada and back on the attack. While on his trip to help the communists, he attacked the CEO of a Canadian company. Of course, the former Greenpeace activist and convicted criminal was completely silent on the slave labor being used in China to build solar panel parts. They're then shipped around the world, including to Canada. Of course, the media focused on his attack on an oil company CEO based in Alberta. The radical minister's outrageous comments attacking Atlantic-based energy companies did not receive the same degree of attention. A federal Liberal attacking someone from Alberta is not exactly breaking news. If the legacy media was not fully invested in the alarmist climate narrative, they may have actually done their jobs and held the radical minister accountable for his outrageous comments. The radical minister blamed the energy companies in Atlantic Canada for the price of energy, except those prices are regulated by independent commissions. It was the independent commissions in each province that examined the Liberals' new clean fuel regulations, which came into effect July 1st. It was the Trudeau Liberals who forced the carbon tax onto the Atlantic provinces. The independent commissions looked at the new tax and new regulations and set the prices accordingly. For the minister to blame the companies is just classic Liberal disinformation. But what makes this outrageous compared to other gaslighting Liberal ministers is that this minister seems to be gaslighting himself. 3 years ago, when the Liberals introduced the clean fuel regulations, they had to complete a regulatory impact statement. Every journalist and Canadian in Atlantic Canada should go and read this document for themselves. It states in black and white that these new regulations would hit the Atlantic provinces the hardest. It says that low-income Canadians and those living on fixed incomes would bear the biggest burden. So the Ministry of Environment said its clean fuel regulations would increase the cost of energy for all Canadians, and especially hammer the Atlantic provinces particularly. Now the Minister of the Environment says he's shocked and appalled that energy prices are going up exactly the way his department predicted. This is the Liberal strategy. The government implements a policy the Liberals know for a fact will increase prices. Then when prices go up, the Liberals blame the companies. Liberals increase food prices and blame the grocery stores. Liberals increase housing costs and blame students and developers. Liberals increase energy prices and blame CEOs. Liberals and their legacy media allies will keep trying to shift the blame, but Canadians aren't falling for it anymore. It's not just the Liberal blame game that Canadians are seeing through. More and more Canadians are waking up to the threats of climate alarmism. The problem is that climate alarmism has a serious impact on the mental health of young people. While the legacy media are still pushing conspiracy theories about dark money funding denialism, no one denies the climate changes. But anyone who tries to discuss the costs and benefits with any climate policy is attacked. There are trade-offs between adaptation and mitigation, but the Liberals and the legacy media don't want to discuss trade-offs. They want to talk about a climate apocalypse because that gets clicks and donations. Take a look at this chart of stories on climate change appearing on the CBC's nightly newscast, The National, and it's broken down month by month. During the winter, the CBC produced far fewer stories containing the words climate change than they do in the summer. In July, when some parts of the southern United States were experiencing record heat and Canada had a record wildfire season, mentions of climate change soared. But though the fires continued to burn and whole cities had to be evacuated in August, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal were having an uncommonly cool August. This cooler than average August caused climate change mentions on CBC to decrease by 125%. It's not just the CBC whose climate change reporting reflects the temperature outside. The Canadian Press Newswire published 100 stories in February with the words climate change. In July, the number was 381. So it's clear that the media used climate alarmism to generate clicks. Here's a simple test to check if a particular media outlet is engaged in climate alarmism. See what they say about hurricanes. The United Nations International Panel on Climate Change has been clear. A warming planet will see fewer hurricanes. Yet the clickbait media want you to be afraid and worried and tuning in to find out what happens next. As inflation continues to hammer the cost of living, Canadians need to have a real debate about mitigation versus adaptation. Trudeau is so completely obsessed with mitigation, he's willing to break the economy to achieve his net zero. Meanwhile, the Minister for Climate Panic is helping the communists build solar cell plants where all the slave laborers are given paper straws. If Trudeau bankrupts this country pursuing his radical net zero agenda, we won't have the money to build out adaptations. Canadians need to have this debate, but the Liberals and the media would rather catastrophize for clicks. Live from Ottawa, this is Cheryl Gallant.